ladies and gentlemen. You're watching a very special episode, a very special show that's called the Tata Sons Leadership Reset. I'm Sumita Karir, and of course I'm joined in by my colleague Shibani Gharat, who's joining in from our Mumbai studios. And of course, over the next 30 minutes, this is what we're going to be focusing on, all the developments that are currently underway at the Tata Group. Remember, N. Chandrasekaran's exit from Tata Sons now sets off a closely watched succession process. But the first question is whether the selection committee can be constituted smoothly. The Ratan Tata Trust is currently restrained from holding meetings or taking key decisions, and this following a Maharashtra Charity Commissioner's direction. And that matters because the two principal Tata Trust, SRTT and SDTT, together nominate 3 of the 5 members of the selection committee, giving them a majority. And of course, the SDTT has accepted Chandra's resignation, and they've begun the search. Possible names include Noel Tata, Darius Khambata and Bhaskar Bhatt, along with Tata Sons NRC Chairman Harish Manwani and an external independent member. So, Shibani, the big question, one of the big questions is, what really is going to happen next?
Absolutely. The big question, as you rightly said, what happens next? Can Tata Trust resolve the SRTT hurdle quickly enough to constitute the panel? Will the next chairman be chosen from within the Tata Group, or will the trust look outside? And what does Tata Sons need from its leader? The obvious priority is the execution. The group has committed billions to capital-intensive businesses, from semiconductors and batteries to electric vehicles and now energy. The next chairman will need to accelerate these bets, then turn around underperforming businesses and bring fresh vision to the newer growth verticals. The bigger question, can Tata Sons find a leader who combines Chandra's execution focus with the ability to steer the group through its next phase of transformation? We'll discuss all of that with our esteemed guests on this special edition. But first, let's go across to Anurag Joshi, who joins in from Bombay House for the latest developments.
The Sir Dorabji Tata Trust has initiated the selection process to find Chandra's successor. Sir Dorabji Tata Trust is setting up a selection committee that will interview candidates, it will screen candidates, and it will recommend the candidate who will eventually succeed N. Chandrasekaran when he steps down in February 2027. In terms of the probable names who could be part of this selection committee, let's first speak into the Tata Sons Articles of Association, which says that 3 of the members, of the 5 members of this committee, have to be nominated by both Dorabji's Tata Trust and Sir Ratan Tata Trust. Sir Ratan Tata Trust is currently facing a limitation of being barred by the Charity Commissioner from holding meetings or taking important decisions. So the onus is on Sir Dorabji Tata Trust. And in terms of the probable names, Noel Tata, who's the chairman of Tata Trust, he could be probably heading the selection panel. And the other 2 members probably who could be part of the selection panel are Harish Bhatt and Bhaskar Bhatt and Darius Khambata, who are part of the Dorabji Tata Trust. In terms of the internal candidates who could be probably looking to succeed Chandra once he retires, we need to look at those candidates who have a service age headroom of over 5 years, and those between, say, 3 to 5 years. So those over 5 years, P.B. Balaji, CEO of JLR, he is 56 years, and you have Shailesh Chandra, MD and CEO of Tata Motors Passenger Vehicles, he's 53. In terms of more experienced candidates but who have a headroom of just 3 to 5 years, that's T.V. Narendran, MD and CEO of Tata Steel, who's 61 years.
Absolutely, Anurag. So some of the key questions that are still persisting with respect to this particular succession story that's currently taking shape. And of course, you will be getting us all the very latest as far as this particular story is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a stellar panel of guests to help us decode all the developments that are underway and the key questions that persist as far as the succession story is concerned. I'm now being joined by Nirmalya Kumar. HP Ranina is also joining in, Mr. Kumar. He is a senior Supreme Court advocate. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on 80 Now. You just heard my colleague Anurag speaking about all the various aspects of this developing story. Nirmalya, let me come to you first. How easy or difficult will the task be for the selection panel to appoint Chandra's successor, and who would be the strongest internal contender for the position in your view? There are a bunch of names that are doing the rounds, but what is your opinion on these matters?
So, I mean, it is not going to be an easy task, but it's also not an impossible task. It's a task that requires some dedication to find a person who can lead the Tata Sons as chairman. What you have to understand is not start by personalities, which is what perhaps most people do, but you have to start with what are the competencies required to be a chairman of Tata Sons. The competencies or the capabilities required to be the head of Tata Sons is really, can you look at a bunch of very diverse businesses, and the biggest job you have is how do I change this portfolio? How do I reorient this portfolio so that it's a strong portfolio 10, 20, 30 years from today? So the biggest decisions I have to make are on portfolio. What businesses should I be in? What businesses should I exit? And what businesses should I ramp up? And what business should I staff for money? That is the biggest decision. What should this portfolio look like 10 and 20 years from now? That's the first thing. The second thing is somebody who embodies the values of the Tata Group, so that some of the things that have happened in the past 10 years that have had a deleterious impact on the Tata values and the Tata culture are actually resurrected, and the Tata culture is brought back. In terms of the people that you're mentioning, the internal candidates, the reason why they are all lacking is because they have a great skill. To give them credit, because I know some of them. Shailesh Chandra was my first executive assistant at Tata Group. I worked with many of the others very closely. So they are great operators of a single business. They have great executional ability. They know how to operate a known business model very well. Some know it better than others, but they know how to operate a known business model. What we need in the Tata Sons today is how do we manage the business models of tomorrow? How do we explore and find new business models? And in that respect is where Chandra failed miserably, because the three businesses that he started, Tata Digital, Tata Electronics, and Air India acquisition, were all trying to find new business models. And he was a great TCS man, 40 years in TCS operating a known business model. Suddenly he comes into a situation where he has three new business models, and then of course he failed, and the losses for those increased every year. In fact, the last financial year, in all three businesses, the losses were the highest ever. So we need a person who can search and explore for new business models rather than someone who's capable of exploiting a known business model, which is what all of the CEOs that you have mentioned and the candidates that you have mentioned have. So we are looking for a set of skills that none of them have.
Mr. Rajina, right now, Sir Ratan Tata Trust is facing a limitation of being barred by the Charity Commissioner from holding any meetings or passing any important decision. How much is this a risk for the occurrence of the Tata annual general meeting, which is due to take place on August 18? And how will this affect the transition process and the succession until Chandra steps down?
Well, the company will have to move the High Court in case the Charity Commissioner does not respond to the application made. Because this is a very important point. And I don't see why the Charity Commissioner is sitting on the application when he should dispose it off immediately. So if it doesn't happen, then obviously they have no choice but to go to the Bombay High Court on a writ petition and ask the High Court to direct the Charity Commissioner to give his permission. So I think it's a question of time. Hopefully it may happen before the 18th of August. But if it doesn't happen, then this is the only recourse that Tata Trust will have. If there is some delay, obviously they can again adjourn the AGM to some extent for a few days, because you have time up to 30th of September to the final date for holding an AGM. And if that doesn't happen, then you go to the registrar of companies and ask him to extend the time for another maybe 2 months or 3 months up to 31st December 2026. So these are the options open to them. I think these are procedural issues and they have to be taken care of, and I think will be taken care of. I don't see a bigger hurdle in this.
Over to Mr. Nirmalya Kumar yet again, and speaking about leadership, since you already mentioned that Tata Group should now be looking at the next phase of growth. So, what top-tier professional, according to you, outside the group, would be willing to accept the chairman seat? I'm asking you this because this feud was very public, and has this feud re-established sort of like the glass ceiling that proves that you cannot successfully lead Tata Sons unless probably your last name is Tata? Are you seeing that directly aligned with, that family's personal faction? Is it being seen like that? Help us understand that.
So basically, you bring up a very good point, because you have to understand, in a Lala company, as every Indian manager will tell you, if you don't get along with the Lala, you're fired. I'm sorry, competence is irrelevant at that stage, okay? So in the end, what Ratan Tata did was he said, I'm going to be the chair of the trust. I will have all the power. The Tata Sons chairman, serves at my benefit, serves at my goodwill. The day I decide I don't want the person as chairman, it doesn't matter what the Tata Sons board says, the Tata Sons board will fall in line and fire him. That's what they did with Cyrus Mistry. So then any external candidate that you appoint, especially if you bring them from, a top global place or a global company or a top Indian company, is going to ask a very simple question: how aligned is the Tata Trust with the Tata Sons, and what is the alignment process, and how do I make sure that every decision that I make is not being second-guessed by the Tata Trust, right? If it is going to be second-guessed by the Tata Trust, then I don't want this job. That's what all top candidates will tell you.
Absolutely, sir. You make a very valid point, and of course, we'll continue this conversation, gentlemen, right after this very short break. We have to get into a short commercial break, but don't go anywhere, viewers. We'll be right back after a short break. Stay tuned to this special edition, Tata Sons Leadership Reset, that we're discussing right here on ET Now.
Welcome back. You're watching our special show, Tata Sons Leadership Reset. I'm Shabani Gharad, and there is my colleague Sumita Kareer. Now, Tata Sons has begun the process of identifying the next group chairman, but the successor will inherit a demanding agenda beyond the leadership transition. From sustaining growth across key listed companies to improving returns on capital-intensive investments, the new chair will have to balance execution with transformation. Ashisha joins us with more details on that.
Well, yes, now that N. Chandra has said that he does not seek reappointment and his term will end in February 2026, let's put the spotlight on key challenges that the successor will now have to face going forward. First, of course, will be with respect to maintaining the growth momentum with respect to its existing businesses. Efficient capital allocation will be another challenge for the successor. Let's talk about the growth momentum, especially for the existing businesses. Tata Motors, TCS, Tata Consumer Products, Tata Steel, Tata Power, and a couple of other new businesses, and how Tata Group manages to sustain the growth trajectory for each of these legacy and new businesses will be very crucial. Let's also talk about recent investments. They've done massive investments across semiconductors, batteries, electronics, electric vehicles, and so on and so forth. And maintaining the kind of growth momentum that was earlier envisaged, even for these new businesses, will also be very important. Let's also talk about renewable energy, the new business CAPEX versus capital-intensive industries that the company is already in, that the group is already in, whether it is Tata Steel or Tata Motors, and the kind of return on investment these new businesses versus the traditional businesses will earn will also be very important. TCS, of course, this is the biggest profit-generating segment for the Tata Group companies, and remember, balancing AI and the fact that we are seeing a disruption in technology sector will also be very important, and maintaining the kind of growth rate TCS has reported for the last several decades will be very important. Air India turnaround, of course, will be another factor that you need to watch out for. Remember, Tata Group reacquired Air India in 2022, and after that, turnaround clearly has been very challenging. The company and the group aims to focus on fleet expansion, operational transformation, safety upgradation, especially after the June event that happened last year with respect to Air India, and maintaining global scale will also be very important. So Air India's turnaround clearly will be one of the key focus areas for the successor as far as Tata Group is concerned. Let's also talk about new businesses, especially the ones which are loss-making currently, whether it is Tata Digital or whether it is Tata New. There is no clear path to profitability for both of these businesses. In fact, Tata Digital's FY26 loss widened to nearly 5,000 crore rupees. So what will the path to profitability look like for both Tata Digital and Tata New will be very important. Last but not the least, let's also talk about governance, especially because the group has faced several governance issues over the last 2 decades. Maintaining the fine balance between Tata Trust and Tata Sons will be very important. And along with that, we also have a couple of other operating companies. Most of them are listed. So any kind of governance related issue should not happen in the future. That is also one other factor that you need to watch out for. So clearly, successor of N. Chandra will have to focus on all these priorities over the next few years.
Absolutely, Ashesha. These are, some of the challenges that the new chair will have to navigate through, and the new chair will have to balance execution with transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to our guest, Nirmalya Kumar, along with Mr. H.P. Ranina. Both of them are with us on this broadcast. Let me come to you, Mr. Kumar, once again. And this essentially is about what is going to happen to the businesses with strong capex, which have strong capex investments. For example, the semiconductor business, the renewable energy business, or the EV business. Is there going to be some rethink as far as these businesses are concerned? And of course, this is, a new era of leadership at the Tata Group. So what are going to be the key priorities as far as moving into a new era as far as that is concerned? Because remember, there are challenges on the global front and there are challenges on transformation related to AI. So of course, a whole host of challenges do face the company. But what is going to be the key priority as far as these high capex businesses are concerned?
Listen, this is essentially the number one decision that the new chairman will have to make is how many of these businesses that are eating cash flow can we continue to fund? Because remember, our only source of cash flow is one, TCS. And TCS itself is feeling disruption risk. So I'm not sure how much we can rely on the cash flow of TCS in the future. That is an open question to be asked and to be confronted. But given that that is there, and in any case, the only source is TCS, we cannot afford to have so many businesses which are losing money, A, and needing cash flow, B. And the problem in needing cash flow is there is a limitation of how much debt we can take at the Tata Sons level. And one of Noel Tata's points to Chandra was that we can't take more debt at the Tata Sons level because, if we are trying to avoid this listing point, then we have to show we are not an NBFC by default. And that means we can't be borrowing and lending money out of the Tata Sons, balance sheet. So I think I cannot tell you what should be the priority. I can only tell you that that is one of probably the biggest single decision that the new chairman has to make. And there may be that you have to do what I call in strategy, shrink to grow. Means if we are going to continue to fund all these businesses and we don't have the resources to fund all these businesses, then which one or two of them do we pull out of and say, thank you, we would love to be in this business, but we can't given our cash flow, right? Because you have to cut the garment according to the cloth you have. And it is clearly today that they are stretched from a cash flow perspective, especially if the cash machine, the cash cow, TCS, suddenly faces disruption risk.
Staying on with you, Nirmalya, now, do you see any dramatic changes to the Tata Sons board leading up to and following the departure of Chandra in February 2027?
I suspect there'll be some changes after Tata Sons board, but you have to remember, okay, the Tata Sons board is not a board with any power. Okay, it's a Lala company. In a Lala company, the board serves at the mercy of the promoter, right? So when Ratan Tata was there, the board decided that they loved Cyrus Mistry, they endorsed Cyrus Mistry, but Ratan Tata woke up one morning and said, I want to fire Cyrus Mistry, and the entire board said, yeah, we fall in line and we will fire him. You see, so you have to understand the board in Lala companies is not having much power. in India because the majority shareholder votes on both the nominee directors and appoints them, but also votes on the independent directors. So the independent director in India in promoter-led companies is an oxymoron. Because, the promoter votes, if you don't get the promoter 66% of the promoter's votes, you won't become an independent director at Tata Sons. In any Lala company, if you don't get the promoter's votes, you're not going to become an independent director because he has or she has most of the votes in that company. So please understand, the board, I'm sure the board composition will change because some took sides with Chandra, and Chandra, like all smart CEOs anywhere in the world, they capture the board. So Chandra also had successfully captured the board with time. But now, especially when Ratan Tata in the last few years was declining in his, frailty.
Right. Mr. Kumar, you've called it a Lala company quite a few times, but let's go over to our other panelist who's smiling away right there. I can see it on the screen. Now, the larger underlying issue also for the next leadership and in leadership reset is, of course, the much publicly discussed going public. Now, with dissecting trustees and Shapoorji Pallonji group pushing for Tata Sons to go public and Noel Tata fiercely resisting it, what is the true cost of keeping the holding company private? Does avoiding public markets shield the group from, the volatile short-term pressures, or is it simply a defensive mechanism to escape that strict disclosure norms and regulatory transparency that would expose the trust's absolute control? And again, bringing back the Lala company comment over here.
Well, I think company will have to go public sooner than later. As Mr. Kumar rightly points out, there's going to be a cash crunch for the entire group, especially with TCS having its own problems, which was never anticipated previously. So I think it's going to happen. And you may try to put it off as much as you can. And that is why the issue will arise, can this group survive without Tata Sons going public? I think it will have to go because cash is an important issue. Secondly, as you rightly pointed out, governance is an important issue. A big group like a big company like a group like Tata's must have proper corporate governance standards. And if the holding company remains a private company, then that is something questionable. Though I think Tata Sons has its own corporate governance standards, but I think if they are more open, if they're more transparent, if they go public, I think it will certainly inspire a lot of confidence among the investing public. That is very crucial today as I see it. Loss of confidence in the Tata Group because of these changes that has taken place. And the first step for any new chairman would be to restore the confidence of investors and stakeholders, to make sure that the Tata Group is not only going to survive, but it's going to thrive. And to thrive, it will have to have new businesses which are profitable. It will have to have a top-class management. I don't think one individual can run the whole group. You will have to build up a whole team of people who will look after various companies. As you rightly said, somebody will look after one company, but he has to be excellent, like the way Chandra was when he was group of TCS. TCS became the most profitable company because of this one man. But as a group leader, he could not have the same advantage which he had when he was in the TCS itself. So the new chairman of the Tata Group will have to build up a whole team, have to get the right people in the right place for the right companies, and make sure that enough liquidity, enough cash is generated. And ultimately, they will have to go public. They will have to make an IPO in order to make the entire group financially strong.
Absolutely. Very succinctly explained, Mr. Ranina. There are a bunch of challenges that await the new chairman, along with managing that trust is restored in the group, along with governance challenges that remain at bay. So, of course, those will be the two key priorities for the new chairman. But on that note, we're completely out of time on this edition. Thank you very much, Mr. Ranina, for joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, once again, for taking the time out and speaking to us on this special episode. Thank you very much.
Well, the turn of events has been, in fact, closely watched by all of us. With that, we wrap this special edition of the Tata Sons Leadership Reset. Thank you so much, Anurag, for joining us from ground outside the Bombay House. And Sumita Karir and I say goodbye to all of you. Thanks for watching our special show.